أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Welcome to another episode of Quran Bites, where in this series we're studying and analyzing some of the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we find within the Quran. Today's name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I want to focus on is the name Al-Karim, which often in the English language is translated as the most generous. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن شكر فإنما يشكر لنفسه ومن كفر فإن ربي غني كريم. Whosoever is grateful, only they themselves will benefit from that gratitude. And whosoever disbelieves and rejects the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then indeed Allah Azza wa Jal is free of all needs and wants, and He is the most generous subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you look throughout the seerah of the Muslims from the time of the companions all the way up until our time now, you will find many examples of generosity. People who are extremely generous with their wealth. Generous so much so that they give without expecting anything in return. There are many examples of this. From amongst those examples that I want to share with you in this short video is of that man who was approached, and he was a Bedouin man living in the desert. He was approached by three famous companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein radiyallahu anhuma, the two grandsons of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and their cousin Abdullah ibn Ja'far. These three companions were traveling, and as they were traveling they lost all of their provisions, or they ran out of their provisions. And so they found this man in the middle of the desert, a Bedouin man, and they sought help from him. The man gave them his help. So they said to him upon leaving and upon their return that if you ever come to Medina and if you should ever need our help, then seek us out in Medina, for we want to repay this favor to you. Some years later, the man, in a time of drought and famine and a time of difficulty, he went to Medina to seek these three people, to ask them to repay the generosity that he showed them some years before. So he came to the first one, Abdullah ibn Ja'far, and he asked him for help. Abdullah ibn Ja'far, in a time of drought and famine, was also feeling the burden of the drought and famine. But even so, he gave to him, it is said in the narration, 1,000 camels. He then went to the next one, Al-Hasan, and he gave him 1,000 dinars. And he went to the next one, Al-Hussein, and he said that those 1,000 camels that Abdullah ibn Ja'far gave to you, I will give you enough provisions so that you can have enough provisions that these 1,000 camels can carry back. And so that man left from Medina in that time of drought and famine with the generosity of just three people, with 1,000 camels full of goods and 1,000 dinars. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, if this is just three people, even though they may be illustrious personalities within our religion, they are just three humans, three people, three from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine then the generosity of the Creator. If this is just a small example of the generosity of the creation, and we have so many more, including that of our own Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who when a Bedouin man would come, an Arab, and he would ask for wealth, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say to him, do you see this valley between these two mountains, all of the sheep and all of the different cattle that you find between the two mountains in this valley? Take it all. And so the man would return with so much wealth, more than he could ever imagine. And he would say to the people of his tribe, go to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for indeed he is a man who gives without the fear of poverty. If this is the creation, my dear brothers and sisters, then what about the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah Azza wa Jal is Al-Karim, the most generous. And the name Al-Karim means that Allah Azza wa Jal gives, and He gives so freely and He gives so much that He wants and expects nothing in return. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives without reason. You don't have to do something good or a favor to Allah in order for Him to repay you with His generosity. He gives for no reason. And He gives without expecting you to give anything back in return. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jal provides and is generous even to the non-Muslims, even those who deny His very existence subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza wa Jal is generous, and He is the most generous subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we often seek in this month of Ramadan, we often seek Allah Azza wa Jal's help in many issues, with regards to our wealth, with regards to our health, with regards to our family, with regards to our future prospects. All of these things we seek. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who controls the heavens and the earth. He is the master of the universe. And not only is He the master of the universe, but He is an extremely generous master. For He is Al-Karim. So my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, in this month of Ramadan, when you need to seek something, seek it from Allah. When you need to ask help, ask from Allah Azza wa Jal. When you need someone to come to your aid, then don't seek it anywhere before you seek it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Karim, the most generous. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم